See, when the expectations are raised, then there is a problem. Somebody mentioned about SHO. I have a very deep connection with SHO because I was born into a house of SHO. My father was SHO for a long period of time. And he became inspector the year I joined the IPS. So it is a bit of genetic, if you can say, and I've heard of a lot of SHO stories, real stories. I will mention only one to tell you what ingenuity, what improvisation, what innovation, how they can bring ideas to the table on their toes when things are burning. There was a national highway blocked by a mob. Is it clear? Is it? Okay. There was a national highways block by mobsters. It was getting from bad to worse. Women, children. So if there is lathi charge or firing, there will be huge casualty. And 3-4 hours the blockage has been going on. So SHO comes there. It's almost sun is dimming. It's sunset time. And he comes with a simple thing. He says, he orders for, and this cannot be quoted outside. Of course, your viewers who see it on the YouTube, let them keep it to themselves. Don't propagate. I'll be trolled. This happened years ago, so I can say it is not a real story. It's a story. So, to camouflage what I'm saying. So, evening time, he quietly tells one of his constables something in a hush-hush tone, and few meters of 2-3 centimeters thick black nylon ropes are brought, and suddenly people start shouting, snake, snake from one corner, this corner. Crowd melts in no time. Pambai Kandal, Padayam Nadangam. That day it trembled and disappeared. Not one stick was taken up, not one rubber bullet, not one real bullet, SHO. There are hundreds of stories that come into mind, but that will be for another day. There is a tribe called, native Indian tribe called Lakota in 2 states called South Dakota and North Dakota in US. They have a tradition. Before they kill an animal, they thank it. They thank the animal for being the food. So I am thanking this audience for being kind to me. And I won't be that cruel because I have got very sympathetic people here. I thank Mahalingam for those lavish words and thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. It will be a bit of more of the same, what you heard that day, but with minor changes because the topic of future policing is something in which you and I have a direct interest. It is not for the sake of police itself, it's for the sake of society. That's the main point. Some ideas are mine, what I am going to speak today, but many ideas were from better people. So you may like to pay attention and listen with care. Talking about ideas, sometimes we find our ideas suddenly going around and becoming somebody else's ideas and he owns it up and you are anonymized. Sometimes the smarter fellow tells his boss what was his idea is boss's idea. That is the transfer. That's a very smart way of putting your idea into the boss's mind and make him be the owner. There is no life without crime. There is tax, death, crime or certainties. And there is no police. Without police, there is no way you can counter crime. So police is a necessity, whether you love him or whether you hate him, but is an essential part of the society. In today's talk, when I talk about crime, I mean from the entire spectrum, from theft, ordinary theft to terror. And we are straddling 3 centuries in terms of the Indian makeup. We are slightly backward in certain areas. We are quite forward in many other areas. So that policing here is much more complex than in a very, very modernized country. Talking of the past, the criminal had to personally be present at the scene of crime. Today, sitting in Colombia, you can pauperize a man sitting in Cochin or Chindaripet. A terrorist can be recruited, picked, brainwashed, trained and sent to Syria without seeing the other man's face. That's what technology is today. The punishment those days included tooth for tooth, eye for eye, blood money compensation, etc. If the son does a crime, the father could be punished, even in the Indian old system. If one individual has an aberration, the entire community can be punished. That reminds me of Genghis Khan's way of punishing the entire section of men. If they come back, one dead. If one man out of a section is dead in a war, the remaining 9 are killed by Genghis Khan. He said, why did you allow him to die? Why didn't you all die? You'd all come back alive or die. ஒரு தனி மனிதனுக்கு உணவு இல்லை என்றால் ஜெகத்தினை அழித்திடுவோம். That is Bharati. That is said in a benign way. That is one man mistake, we all own up. So this is called community punishment. This was there in our system and many other systems. Let's look at some hard facts. There is no utopia without crime. Except very, very cold countries where everybody is too cool, even the criminal and the victim. There's no crime in maybe Antarctica, maybe in Iceland, maybe in Finland, almost no crime. India ranks 79 out of nearly 200 countries in the crime map. And the consolation is Syria, Afghanistan are behind us. There is one expert, second point, David Bailey says, between the demand and supply for security, there will always be a gap. Your quest, your urge, your demand for security will be more than what can be supplied by the state or other substitutes. Third point is, safety and fear concerns are a constant in life. Singapore, 5.5% people said they're worried about safety. But in Lebanon, 80% said they are all the time concerned about safety. Fourth point is about motivation. Jack Katz, a famous criminologist, says the criminal has got the excitement factor and empowerment factor that motivates him into the crime, apart from other factors, poverty, compulsion, necessity, opportunity, etc. So if there are chaps with empowerment and excitement, a whole lot of them, there will never be a dearth or short supply of criminals. Point 5 is the crime news. There is something alluring, gripping. It is even cathartic, therapeutic, even medicinal. It's nice to read as long as you are not the victim. You find it's so attractive that you cannot resist. And today, another point is earlier, the immediate circle was impacted. Your family, your kin, whoever was affected, not the whole circle. Now, like Zomato, Swiggy, Blinkit, it's door delivered. The whole news is spread all over virally and spirally. Therefore, this is called amplification of news. In the 1960s up to 70s in USA, suddenly the perplexing phenomena arose. Everybody was talking about crime, then the analysts went in to find out why that everybody feels more unsafe. Then they figured out that's because of the media is reporting it more. It's crime-wise, it has always been steadily going. Annually 1%, 2% increase, like in many other things, hike. But the knowledge or the awareness or the impact was more because of media. Here nobody is blaming the media. I am saying the media is doing its job, I am saying as a matter of fact. This amplification, the TikTok and things like that, makes you feel that whatever is happening in Minnesota is happening in Marble. You feel the impact immediately. That it may happen to me. There is something called ganging, banging on the internet. That is, the gangs fight on the internet. And because of this, what was only a street fight becomes a digital fight, triggering of the street fight, and it's a vicious circle. Finally, the point I'm saying is, to catch the mice, you require cats. By cats, I mean chaps like us who are in the police. It is inevitable. I am not perpetuating or say the concept called policing, so please support police. No. It's not like Max Weber who said, bureaucrats are excellent fellows. They give you rules, norms, etc. But one negative point about bureaucrats, which includes me, is they self-perpetuate themselves. They don't want to eliminate themselves. They'll sponsor themselves. I am not sponsoring. I want to make a clarification here. There is an observation by Eco Umberto. He says a nation requires an enemy. To unify itself, solidify itself, it requires an enemy. I'm not suggesting we require the criminal so that the society can consolidate. But fear does unite. I will give you But wait a second, I am only talking about the negative point. Let me also put a positive point about the criminal. This was a WhatsApp joke. It says the criminal gives jobs to a lot of people. The locks industry, the safes industry, the almirahs industry, the lockers industry, grills, gates, compound wall, guards, CCTV, the court, judges, police. We are all dependent somewhat on the criminal. So that's the other side. Now let's look at the cop. He's 24/7. Fighting petty thievery to terrorism, I told you. Instead of treating him as an unavoidable essentiality, if you upgrade him and skill him better, you and me and the society will benefit. So I'm going to follow a strategy here because I think MMA will like the word strategy, tactics, a lot of people talk to you on that. So my strategy, according to some wise people, is to talk to the audience, and in the first part you tell them very shortly what you are going to tell them. Second part, you explain, you tell them clearly. Third part, you summarize and tell them what you told them. That is the place when you are about to conclude, people start clapping and there is a communication gap. The audience is happy, the speaker is finishing, and the speaker thinks the audience is applauding. And that fellow prolongs. I hope it doesn't happen to me. You quietly you put your thumbs down to alert me. So, how to approach this three-part strategy? I'm going to tell you that first part is, the points I'm going to make today are simple. Policing is greater than cocky. It is beyond cocky. That is point one. I'm going to mention to you point two, a magic triangle is the way out for the future. Point three is, there is a rainbow of crime, and if you impose this triangle on these two rainbows I'm going to mention, one is the organic, one is the inorganic. I hope it is not too confusing. It will all be simplified in the due course. You impose this triangle, and this triangle consists of the cocky man, the non-cocky man like you, a geek or the civilian smart people, and the machines, which includes all sorts of gadgets. The smart machines, smart civilians, smart policemen together is the way out for the future. When I talk about the next point 4, the computer will become more important than gun. Already it is becoming as important as the gun. The cop will have to carry both and give it equal heft. Next point is, if we push police alone, that is not enough. When I say policing, it doesn't mean police. It means a jailer, it means a judge, it means a prosecutor, the whole spectrum. So we have to make all these guys smart in case you want to benefit as a society. The last point, which is the most ticklish one, most sensitive one, most thorny one, a neutral police is the best thing. It doesn't mean we don't have a neutral police. I am urging that the police should be made much, much more neutral, more like a constitutional authority. I am treading on very dangerous grounds, but I am convinced that this is an important thing for a good society, an advanced society. It is not as if it is not there in many other places. It is there in many places, advanced countries, and we are an advancing country. Now I will come to the elaboration or elucidation or amplification of the points I mentioned. The crime in future is going to be more complex because the machines have become smarter. And the man behind the machine, if he is smart, is fine. He's a geek. Very often we find not so smart looking people behind the machines. I will give you a personal example. In my case, 40 times or 50 times, my image profile has been used for cyber theft. And some people have lost money also. And we could not recover the money because of the time delay in making the complaint. And some people were arrested in very, very backward looking places of India. And when you look at them, you will find that they are very miserable looking, not even formally educated. But they use the machines so smartly. So that smartness, that savviness, not the traditional literacy is required. This is one of the facets of tomorrow. What happens when a bad man and a smart machine combines is typified with the example of Lazarus, a hacking group in North Korea. They looted Bangladesh bank of $1 billion a few years ago, and luckily, because of some of the countries intervened for Bangladesh, they retrieved most of the money, and they lost only about $85 to $90 million. That was by chance. The danger, the border between geography, between one country to another, is erased because of ether, because of the communication which flows across borderless. Therefore, the police will have to work, the army and police will have to work together as part of the national security team. The army itself is getting shrunk. It is using smarter machines. The police will also be reducing its numbers. Instead of being a pair of legs or a jack of all trades, he is going to be becoming more and more smarter. He should become an expert. In a few seconds, I will give a few examples of how we can be smarter. When I say the triangle, I say cocky, non-cocky, and the best mission is triangle. One example could be, we had Dr. Prakash case in Chennai in the year 2001. Prakash, I believe, is an eminent doctor, even now is practicing, that apart. He faced 13 years of conviction in a child pornography crime. It's on record. I was a commissioner and didn't have much of knowledge of cyber nuances. Jalad Tripathi was my number 2. We engaged a civilian in the triangle I'm talking about. Civilian, Mr. Sriram, he's in US now. He came for a very, very meager allowance, or even he didn't care about the allowance. We could not pay him much. He got into the towers and systems of places which are impenetrable. Even today, some of them are complex. He went into certain places, the digital world, retrieved a lot of stuff, and that became our main evidence. This was the first case of IT Act conviction in India, 13 years. But the interesting side of the thing is, 2001 December it happened, and the fast-track court, imagine fast-track court, I am not contemptuous of the court's delay like Hamlet in The Prince of Denmark. He talks about court's delay in the soliloquy called To Be or Not to Be. I am not contemptuous, but I want to mention to you, it took 7 years, fast-track court with the best of evidence. So the point I am underlining is when you're making the police smarter, because we became smarter because of the ally with the civilian. The military has given you, the corporate world, lot of technology in those days. The computer itself, the email, so many other systems, you go to the thing. Now it is a time to pay back. It's a payback time. So therefore the collaboration between the public and the police becomes more and more intense and significant in the days to come, much more than what it is today. The next point I'm mentioning is, there is something called, Deloitte made a study. It talks about the public place, which is the normal public place, street, and the private public place, things like here, MMA for example, you will have your own guards. You are not completely dependent on the civil police. You are dependent on your own guards also. Let's go to this Express Mall or the other mall there on Velachery Road. They have got their own guard and security system. Many of the gated communities, one system. And we all submit to the protocol, the SOP there without any question. Though you may question the public place safety protocol, we normally submit to the private protocol very easily. This submission and mutual understanding is important because Deloitte says we are going to be outgunning, that is the private security will outgun and out-equip and outsmart even the police, which is a fact. Therefore, the man mission, that is policeman and the private man, the gig mission, collaboration, along with the best equipments becomes a necessity. When talking about gigs, I am reminded of the geese. There is something called Ballantine whiskey. Some of you may be aware of it, otherwise at least personal knowledge or academic knowledge may be there. And Ballantine whiskey employed in the year 1959 security guards. They found the Alsatian and the security guard combination was very expensive and not completely dependable. They engaged 9 geese. Geese, that is, Tamil geese என்ன சொல்றது? வாத்து. அது வாத்து நம்ம ஒரு வாத்து வந்து வாத்து தான். வாத்துன்னா ஒரு மாதிரி நெகட்டிவா போயிடு. வாத்து முட்டை, வாத்து something. இது என்ன? அது வாத்து தான். It's a bigger one, very alert. They're very aggressive. The word became 9 geese, very easy, all the grains and other things are already as raw material available there, no expenses, and they're very alert. Why? 2,400 years ago, the Rome in the year 390 BC was supposed to have been saved by the geese making noises, cackling of the geese you would have heard in history. It is recorded in history. When the enemy was advancing, the geese was making noise, and that is how the Roman insider got alert. Talking about geese, they are running into a bit of a bad luck in Amsterdam airport recently. This time they were on the receiving end. All the beetroot fields nearby to eat the remains, the geese used to come. And this time they employed the pigs to chase away the geese. Why am I mentioning pigs? We all think that pigs smell badly, but pigs also can smell very well. They have got sensitive sensors here, olfactory. Few years ago, in certain airports, pigs were used. Because of religious sentiments, were quietly withdrawn. If you go to Wikipedia, you won't get which airport, nothing. It has been completely erased. But I remember in SPG, since I was in SPG, one of my colleagues here, Shekhar is here. Since I was in BSF, Bennett is here. So I have been watching this thing and I have read about it. Now it is not seen there. But pigs are being experimented for sensory thing today in Israel. Now, why do I mention all these animals? They are part of the organic support to the policing and security system. When I say policing, I don't mean only the Khaki police, include the military and army. Why? Because in Mozambique, in Cambodia, for demining, rats have been used. They are called pouch rats from Africa. I think maybe each fellow is 1 kg, big fellow, almost like a bandicoot. They are excellent. In 1 hour, they do a thorough job of 200 square meters, and they are, I think, 90% dependable. I don't know whether all our explosive experts can be that dependable. Dogs, after 20 minutes, will have to take rest. So, the pig, dog, and the rat, dog has always been our good supporter. In 2611 in Mumbai, if only we had camera-mounted dogs, we would have done better. This is hindsight. I'm not being negatively critical of these people. I'm just saying these are all on record from NSG and various depths. I was also involved in some remote watching and learning and things like that. So I think the good days of black cats are over and black rats are preferred. Now, the point I'm mentioning is about biomimics. You've heard of cyborgs, that is cyber organic, this thing. You've heard of android. You've heard of biotics. So, microbots, small microbots, I can send about 1,000 microbots, small drones into this room, 1,000, and none of you will be aware that there are 1,000. And at a touch of a button, they can coordinate with each other, swarm. They can coordinate and talk to each other. This is what the world today, this is what science and technology is about. Arthur Clarke says there is something very mystifying about technology, but once they become familiar, it gets demystified, it becomes natural and normal. You don't even think that there is something fantastic. You take it for granted. There is one author, in 1968, he wrote about face reading, face recognition, driverless cars. What is his name? Some dick. So they laughed at him. They said, what is this fellow talking? So it's not crap. It's all true. It's happening today. So a flying policeman, a policeman carrying sensors, policeman carrying artificial, goggles is happening. In Staffordshire in US, the man puts on AR goggles and goes, and when he's entering this road, MMA, he knows that somebody has given 100 complaint, that is police complaint, grievance. This fellow is a habitual complaint, all the time he keeps complaining. And he has got a problem of drunkenness. He has beaten his wife twice earlier, and he doesn't go to his office. All this history is coming by the time the man is approaching and walking in the street. Now the constable, this is what the future constable in India also will be. Because we can't keep away if you are going to be 5 trillion or 10 trillion or whichever, and third or fourth and fifth or whatever in the world. We have to step up to the podium. We have to be improving all this. I mentioned to you about this triangle, which is this triangle of good mission and organic support of the animals and the civilian. This is the triangle. What is that? Rainbow I mentioned about. Now, I'm putting the rainbow in a very colorful this thing. You got violent crime for violet. Indigo, what is called the blue collar crime. Why is it called blue collar? Because the blue will absorb the dirt. Like khaki will absorb the dirt, it won't be visible. The people of certain level committing crime. Then you have the invisible. After V, it should be invisible. After violent street crime, it should be I. Indigo, then you have blue collar, I for invisible crime, then B for blue collar crime, Y for yellow or the pornography or the body part selling or the human trafficking, all the other kind of thing. Orange is neither blue nor yellow, it's a combination, orange and red. It is in between these two, it is an ambient one. For example, employer-employee dispute, husband-wife problem, any terrain which is slippery and not well defined, all this will fall under that plate. Then you have the red which spills blood. Anything which is dangerous, violent, insurgency, terror, all these things can be there. So in tackling this, you require a counter rainbow of crime handlers, which is what I explained to you right in the beginning, not only the police, but the entire system. Now, if you improve the police, how can the police be more smarter? When in Afghanistan people were dying due to bomb explosions, the Americans understood that 2/3 of the injuries were because of bombs. Robert Gates, the brilliant defense secretary, he did two things. He brought mine-protected armor vehicle, MPAV, in huge number. And he changed the Bathsheba hospital practices more oriented to trauma care of explosive. He sacked the general doctor there who was archaic, going by the obsolescent old practices and only treating the old kind of medical protocol and not orienting his men for explosion trauma. Then he introduced lot of drones, so when the MPAV went, the drone would have gone in advance to check any change in the route, any digging, anything has happened on the route. Or when it is actually going, any fellow suspect moving from the sidelines. The casualties dropped dramatically, radically. This is what drones did. On a lighter vein, but in also a serious rumination, I used to think if only we had good drones, Veerappan operation would have been over in 1992-93 itself, when he was holed up in a place called Bodamalai, and Walter Devaram and his men were slogging day in, day out, and the chap was only a few hundred meters, sometimes very close by. We couldn't sniff him out, and we could not carry dogs there because our dogs became cumbersome. These Doberman pinschers weighing between 28 and 35 kgs, the females were 28 kg, males were about 34 kgs. They became a problem. They had to be carried by the handler. They were not smart like the street dogs. So the jungle dogs were taken over by us. These poachers used to have some jungle dogs. We took that jungle dogs and we tried to make our dogs. We sort of poached from the poachers. But these dogs became lazy once they came to our government ration, I used to say. Because the government ration was lavish. And these fellows started eating good amount of beef. And the same problem, we had to carry those fellows. So that's in a lighter way, not really part of the thing. So in making the court smart, I told you about one case in which the reason is there are more than nearly 3 crore cases all over the country and more than 80,000 cases in Supreme Court. If you're talking about the prisons, there are 6 lakh prisoners and many of them are under trials. 66 or 67% under trial. That means trial is not over. They are not convicts. They are under trials. We should find a way out. Why should we feed at our expenditure so many people as government guests and some of them innocent fellows who may prove to be innocent? Why should they be there? So in cutting down the court, today drones are being sent by the courts as a drone commission. That is, the drone goes and sees the site and comes back and reports, okay, this land belongs to him, etc. In UP, in survey of the maps, drones are being used. So drones have got multiple use. Drones can be used for sending good medicine to save a patient or drugs for the drug addict. It is either way. It all depends on the application. So the point I am trying to say is, technology is something which is neutral. It is magical, mysterious, neutral, and the one who rides it, who jumps on it, is a winner. How do I say this? Several examples. But in 1912, in Paris, a bank was being looted. That's interesting because the looters, the robbers came in a car whose driver they had shot and taken, stolen the car and come there. When they looted and left, the police went chasing, can you believe it, on horseback and cycles because they didn't have car. So police were half step behind. Very often we will be half step behind. That is not our curse. It's what order of the day. When Babar Khalsa, many of you would have not heard except people in the services and people who remember history, Punjab, one of the ferocious terrorist organization, they were using AK-47 at that time. And Punjab police was having very antiquated, old, archaic guns. KPS Gill one day came very angrily and met Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, and Rajiv Gandhi ordered that this shall be done immediately. I was there on that night in PM House. In protecting CM Jayalalitha, this is a personal story, very brief. We had no advanced guns. I wanted to make it like SPG, where I was Prime Minister's protection, and NSG, where I used to be in a different capacity as an observer. But by the time the sanctions came, I found out a shortcut. We found a lot of AK-47s of the LTTE lying there in our armory, and the Chief Minister was facing the highest threat from LTTE, but their guns have been seized and kept with us. Then I realized these guns were supplied by us few years back, our intelligence agencies, to them. So it is the chicken coming back to home to roost or something. So now we are using the same gun against the possibility of LTTE attack. These kind of technology chase keep happening, but a smart society is the one which understands that a healthy police is good for them. So I have told you that now I am summing up. I'm trying to conclude. It's happy news for all of us that this collaboration is the most beneficial. And in doing this, when the junior Bush daughter was caught for drunkenness few years ago, and when Kiran Bedi 40 years ago gave a thrashing to some Nirankaris or some armed Sikh chaps in Delhi, it was a big news. Or when she challaned very important political man's car, it was a big news. Of course, it is commendable. She's a great person, excellent police officer, very daring. But what I am trying to say is it becomes very distinct. Even in my case, very ordinary things I did became remarkable just because many things outside were unremarkable. In contrast, maybe. When Bush daughter was challaned, the important point is Secret Service was protecting her. The Secret Service was asked, why you didn't do anything? He said, no. Why you didn't stop her? She said, no, she is of that age. It is for her to understand what is infringement, what is law breaking. It is not my job. I will protect her physically. What she does morally is not my concern. That's a very clear bifurcation of duties. So, the police, if it is beyond political, when I mean political, I am not saying police should run amok and run away and become totally headless, totally, without any control. No. It should be under a proper commission, it should be under proper control, proper supervision, but it should be apolitical. Why do I say this? I have been with several governments and I find this funny situation where the government which praised you for controlling crime, the moment it goes into opposition, condemns you for not controlling crime. The crime gets weaponized. Instead of weaponizing the police, the crime becomes weaponized and highly politicized. So, then somebody calls somebody caged parrot, very rightly maybe, very appropriately so. Why this caged parrot syndrome? Why should anybody be caged? So liberate them. Because when society wants liberty, freedom, and suddenly they find safety compromised, you are willing to surrender for the sake of safety quite a bit of liberty. Bukele, El Salvador, he was a president. He was elected this year, exactly 9 months ago, with 85 to 87% popular vote. What happened? There were 87 killings back to back which happened in El Salvador. And people were traumatized. They said, we don't want anything, we want safety. They're willing to do anything. This chap locked up 1% of the population, 80,000 people. And the crime rate, the murders fell from 5.4 to 2.6 or something. I mean, it became 40%. 1% of the population inside. So I was thinking, India, the murder rate is 2.1 for 1 lakh. So India, we want to reduce the crime rate, we want to lock up 1%, that means 1.4 crore people. That's a vote bank, that's not possible. So these kind of comparisons are odious, but the example is appropriate. So the point I'm taking is, when a crime becomes politicized, the police becomes bandied. He's bashed from this side, bashed from that side, the press also on one side. What does he do? So the best way is take him out, make him answerable to the constitutional authority. So this is the last point. I said this is preposterous, very outrageous, very outlandish, unacceptable, but this is truly one of the ways ahead. When you ask for the future of police, you really ask for the trouble. You ask for trouble, and this is what I'm giving. I'm saying, keep the police aside. Keep them free. Let him be neutral to you, let him be neutral to him. So there's a lot of waste of time accusing him of doing this, that. And what is a normal SHO bail power? It goes right up to Supreme Court. Supreme Court already are overburdened. They have to do so many constitutional hair-splitting, finest of the nuances they have to cull out and talk. Now you're sending all this bail, because bail involves liberty of a man. It is very true. It's the highest, most precious thing in life. But then, if the SHO had the complete power, authority, and the neutrality, and you don't suspect him, you want to give him a gun and say you can kill anybody, but we don't trust your deposition in court. No, you're a suspect. How can it be? How can you treat a cop like a criminal? So are you serious about having a good cop? Or you want to have a good, bad and ugly cop because it sounds nice? That is a combination always. It cannot be completely be good. This is the question I would like to pose to this very empathetic audience who have been very nice to me and very patient. Thank you so much for your patience. I'll end there. And if there are any questions, and the questions are not too tough, I'm willing to answer.